pew-pews and things. If you can think of a slur for Hispanics that rhymes with kick, it says kick a blank. F-U, wait, oh my God, what? Lots of the N-word. F-U, eat shit with it. Oh, then the F slur. 6 million wasn't enough, which is a very common thing for these kids that are in these discords that are spewing like far right schmutzy propaganda. They're referring to how many people were unalived in the Holocaust. Hi, Joby. God, you know, like how gas unalived a lot of people in the Holocaust. He had tear gas or mace saying extra JEW gas. I mean, but again, the interest of this, like on the site of the rifle, it says F optics. Sorry. But then right under it, it says unalive Trump now. Like, this is the irony of this. Also, let me show you another thing that's interesting while I'm on this line of logic. Let me find, I think I have a screenshot of this. I can't, okay, wait, hold on. I know I have a screenshot of this somewhere. Yeah, here it is, okay. I don't want to show that part. There's a video that's super disturbing, which is just them like bullets or, you know, just picking. It's like almost like an ASMR video, but then the words are quite disturbing. But in this now deleted video, which this is kind of the caption of that video, if you want to find this, and this, a lot of this really terrible stuff was put into a thread, not my thread, but on X. Don't recommend you go on X, but if for some reason you want to see this, Patriot Takes, which they work for Midas Touch, go to @PatriotTakes. They made a thread with like some of the worst stuff. In this now deleted video, this is before. This is why it's so funny. Like Kosh Patel, like an hour and a half ago, was like, "I will now announce who the pew-pewer is." It's like on X, everyone knew for 3 hours. In this now, but I'm just telling you that's why it says alleged, because no one had officially announced yet, but like everyone had found the time released TikTok and was starting to find all that content. In this now deleted video, alleged Minneapolis church pew-pewer Robin Westman told supporters in the to vote, which this is the craziest part. So that's the largest part of this video is them saying, "Hey, I met Brandon Herrera, who's a Republican candidate for Congress, at a pew-pew show," which I assume is probably where some of this was purchased. I mean, it seems like there's a very large collection. And we agree on the same things, you know, around 2A and all that. And this video is basically saying, hey, yeah, vote for this person. Quote, "I met Brandon Herrera at a SHOT Show last year, which is a convention. He and I had a brief conversation, but we agreed on a lot of things. So y'all should vote for Brandon Herrera for president." And then says like, F those kids, which I found very disturbing. But again, this is from, oh wait, I can just show you. If you want to find this, because this is a thread that has the other pictures of the actual weapons and like the slurs and anti-Semitic stuff that's written on them, you can go to @PatriotTakes on X, where you can post anything, no matter how horrific, and that's where you can find it. And then underneath, you know, there's more postings from MAG and stuff. So I would say if you're looking for more information, this might be a good place to start. Like, I don't know why you would say, I told you I pretty much just described most of it, but sorry, I need to make sure this is not showing as I scroll through, because I don't want to be banned because I'm describing this stuff. Wait, I know there's one more clip I need to play, or two more. Probably two more. And then there's like four more. Okay. Got him. So I told you, like, Trey Gowdy, I was shocked because Trey Gowdy was like, yeah, like, until we stop people from these weapons being in people's hands, until we can identify them early. You know, he's basically lobbying on Fox News this morning immediately after this for red flag laws. And I was like, man, maybe Fox is about to do the right thing. No, they were not. So now I believe her name is Rachel Campos Duffy. Okay, I couldn't remember her name. So these, and then it got gross, like it always does on Fox, which these are the clips that made me want to do actual math so I could just prove, I mean, I don't need to do statistical analysis. This is obviously wrong, but this is what made me think, God, people need to understand reality.
And that is about the last big school shooting we remember. I mean, there's been others. The last one with a lot of attention was at a Christian school. This is a Catholic school. What happened this summer in Syria in the middle of Mass, June, at a Greek Orthodox church, right in the middle of Mass, children there. 22 children killed, 62 wounded. And so, yes, we need to think about these things happen here. Christians are the most persecuted religion in the universe right now in the world. So that's definitely a potential.
I don't need to do a statistical analysis about that. That is absolutely not true. I told that to the other people of the book, as they call them. If you don't know that term, people of the book, like, it's the umbrella of, like, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, who are, like, the rate per 100,000, as we would say, of discrimination. Yeah, don't worry, like, more, that is a joke, but you know, this is the narrative. So what she's doing, she spoke after Trey Gowdy's like, yeah, very obviously, if we really care about children, you know, he's not saying the words red flag laws, but he's describing them and saying, this is what we need to prevent this from happening. And this was her first immediate response is, it's persecution against Christians. No, the F it is. They're not going church to church. They're going school to school. But, like, and also, it really bothers me when she says Christians are the most persecuted people on earth. Like, are you okay? Like, there are literal laws in this country to protect Christianity, but since Trump has come into office in January, there's executive order after executive order literally claiming Christianity is the only religion allowed to be practiced. And yeah, I don't, like, that is a wild, wild claim to make, especially in this country. Oh, and here's the one that spurred me on to do the actual statistical analyses. This drives me nuts.
And that is about the last big school shooting we remember. I mean, there's been others. The last one with a lot of attention was at a Christian school. This is a Catholic school. What happened this summer in Syria in the middle of Mass, June, at a Greek Orthodox church, right in the middle of Mass, children there. 22 children killed, 62 wounded. And so, yes, we need to think about these things happen here. Christians are the most persecuted religion in the universe right now in the world. So that's definitely a potential motive. But Trey, you talked about how do we protect these schools? I think of two things. SSRIs and the kinds of medications so many young kids are on since such a young age. I hope Bobby Kennedy looks into that, our Secretary of Health and Human Services. But also, why haven't we until now? We've talked about how do we secure these soft targets you talked about. Where I've always wondered, why don't we have a civilian group of retired veterans, retired cops who volunteer?
I need to say this, like, before I get into my statistical analyses, Trump is defunding the police. Period. And you know what? And one of the things I was really passionate about playing today, J.B. Pritzker gave a speech that just brought the house down. And I'm going to play it. And that's what J.B. Pritzker is talking about. Trump has defunded the police. But since MAGA can't do math or read and can't find their way out of a paper bag, they have no idea about that. Not only, and the other funny thing is, they're trying to change the name of the military, or from Department of Defense to Department of War. right? And yesterday in that weird glazing session of it was supposed to be the cabinet. It was just people like on their knees, like S-ing Trump off and giving him Andrew Jacksons. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. The reality is, the reason you had to get rid of DEI was because it was lowering standards, that's a lie, which I can prove through math, but standards have never been lower. Funding has never been lower. For the ATF, you have a problem with children being pew-pewed? Trump defunded the ATF. Trump defunded the FBI. Trump has rerouted every a lot of able-bodied, intelligent people in the FBI to what? Immigration enforcement, right? If you have a problem, same thing with if you care about child sex trafficking, he rerouted people from that to ICE. Every reason this happened, Trump is guilty of. And I love watching people be like, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Yes, he did. Trump has defunded the police. The same things you guys railed against, which defund the police was a slogan and part of a larger conversation about accountability in the police force, meant to invoke emotional reactions and make people think, right? It was part of the Black Lives Matter movement. Trump actually did it. Trump actually stole from all of us. Trump is making it harder for us to keep anyone safe. That is the absolute reality. Sorry, let me finish this last part and then I'll get into the mental health stuff because I just can't stand that.
Once they're done, to protect these soft targets, to protect our schools, is that something that could happen?
That was one of my ideas when I was the district attorney, is take retired law enforcement officers, screen them obviously, so you get out people that you don't want. There are countless adults whose children are either older or who did not have children, who are willing to risk their lives to protect the most innocent among us.
Oopsie, sorry. That was my fat fingers and an unstable perch for my iPad. I'll go back to the person. Okay, there we go. But yeah, and also I was going to speak about this sort of unrelated. I didn't, we never know when these tragedies are going to occur. But I was going to do a piece that I never got to on Monday about Trump had, this is the point, DEI, we need the best, and that's not black and brown people, and white people are inherently better than anything. No, I will take, I don't debate a lot, but yeah, if you want to debate me that no one is less qualified than Trump's cabinet to be in the positions they were in, I'll take that debate. If you want to debate me that Trump has lowered the qualifications to be in the police force, in the FBI, in ICE, in any agency, they are taking the dumbest. And actually, oh my gosh, it's so funny because when I clipped this, I did not know that this horror show was going to happen. But this is from Rachel Maddow's show on Monday, right? She was doing a piece on this. And this is not Felice saying her feelings. This is math, MAGA. Everything that you said DEI was doing to you, which, let's be real, you guys are just insecure about brown and black people being more qualified, more intelligent, and wanting what you believe is a piece of a pie. Equality and equity are not a pie. As we know from America, in order to grow our gross domestic product, we need immigration. But that's also a problem. That's indicative of you all not being able to do math. You believe that there's only so much fairness to go around, so you've got to oppress people lest you lose something that you believe belongs to you. But this is a clip, just a short clip from Rachel Maddow's show on Monday.
The chairman fired or pushed out the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Second in Command of the Air Force, the Commandant of the Coast Guard, the Chief of Naval Operations, the Deputy Head of the NSA, the Head of the NSA, and the Head of Cyber Command, the Chair of the National Intelligence Council. Now, just recently on Friday, they fired the Head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Chief of the U.S. Navy Reserve, and also the Head of the Navy SEALs. And this comes on top of the evisceration of the National Security Division of the Department of Justice and the wholesale reassignment or removal of the FBI's National national security core operations. And you can follow these stories one by one, or you can look at the big picture and recognize that what's happening here might be quite important, particularly in the national security sphere. He is deprofessionalizing the U.S. military and federal law enforcement and federal emergency response while he is...
And the police, right? He doesn't want intelligent professionals. You know who was an intelligent professional? General Mark Milley. And what happens when you have an intelligent professional as Joint Chief of Staff? They push back. They say, I can read Donald Trump. I know the Constitution. Right? The last thing he wants, he has hired the dumbest of the dumb. And again, for MAGA, because I know you call women dumb or you call black and brown people dumb, I'm actually saying factually he did this. Because Trump is dumb AF. So imagine how dumb Trump is. He has to get people dumber than him. Like, that should terrify everyone about their personal safety, because he doesn't want pushback, right? When there is a authoritarian takeover, which I don't know if anyone knows this, but I hate to say this word because I've been trying to take it back and explain to people what socialism actually is. When you look at the political spectrum, socialism is on the left. Socialism should be democratic, voluntary, cooperative. But when you hear, when the right, due to a bad PR campaign, talks about socialism, which I always talk about this as a history major. In World War II, were we fighting socialism? Absolutely not. We were fighting fascism. We were very much fighting fascism. But for some weird reason, the PR campaign that came after World War II was down with communism or down with socialism. But what Trump is doing, which if the intelligent parts of MAGA, X is, I've never seen X like this. I mean, the Epstein files was bad. But if you don't know, Trump is doing what I think... It actually has taught me a lot. Now I know what people believe socialism is. Trump is not a real socialist. Trump is a fascist, authoritarian dictator. But now I get it when MAGA, who are uneducated and can't read or do math, say, you guys are socialists, and it's like a slur. Trump's doing that. Trump just stole 10% of Intel. Stole. And he's not stopping. But I just want to be clear, socialist, which is the socialism, which would be the opposite of privatized profit, splitting profits or using profit, nationalizing profit to the benefit of the American people, is not what Trump is doing. Trump is now raiding and robbing and threatening corporations, stealing stakes in their company, not because we're all about to get free health care, which would be bring in the healthcare. No, socialism is we all own it, we all benefit. So we all get free university, we all get free healthcare. Trump is now robbing corporations as authoritarian fascist dictators do. You know who did it? Mustache Man, and I can give you some examples. I was talking about schmaltzy war profiteering. He's doing that to give corporations and billionaires tax cuts. We're not getting health care. We're not funding SNAP. But I'll get into that later. I had a whole amazing presentation, but it's like I always struggled. I mean, I knew what they thought socialism and communism is. I knew why it's been this like slur in America. I know the post World War II campaign that was run to like say, oh, don't worry, forget fascism. We got to be careful of socialism and communism, but it's not. Right? Socialism and communism are ideals on the far left. Right? If there is a dictator stealing from people, marauding and taking things by force, and denying the checks and balances of government and the voice of the people, that's just a fascist dictator who's stealing. Like, that is Maduro in Venezuela. That's why I used to get annoyed when people would be like, oh, yeah, that's socialism in Venezuela. I'm like, are you lost? Those people can't get a cracker to eat. That is the opposite. Socialism is the people, us, having equity. If we were given equity, right? Trump is just stealing from people. We're not going to see a dime. And let me give you another example. When Trump was like, okay, we're invading Greenland. And what was the other one? We're going to like take over. Oh, hold on. These, all of a sudden 10 co-hosting things popped up. Nope, we're not starting that again. I cannot stand that. Sorry, they take over my screen. When Trump was like, oh, we're going to steal the Panama Canal and we're going to go to war with a block of ice in the north, I was like, you know what is weird about this whole thing? If Trump was saying, hey, that ice is melting and it's largely conservatives' fault, but when it melts, there's going to be untold minerals under there. And I hear you guys saying that you need health care. So we're going to send our children there to take it over in a bloody war, which I'm not saying there's enough people in Greenland to war against us. It's just you have to understand there's an Arctic treaty. And all, the Earth is a circle, and all the countries that border the Arctic and places like Greenland are fighting over this melting polar ice cap that has so many minerals that are about to be exposed. And if Trump was saying, hey, we're going to go to war and everyone's getting health care, I still don't want to go to war, just let me be clear, but that would be socialism. Well, let me just also be clear. If we voted on it and the majority of the United States citizens were like, okay, I'm that desperate for health care, let's go take Greenland, and if we're going to get health care out of it, okay. That's socialism. That's equity. And it's not even just saying like healthcare. It would be like whatever the profits, the spoils of that war are, you're all going to get, there's going to be, let's say, a pool for Americans and everyone's going to get so much equity, right, in that. That is socialism. It is voluntary. It is democratic, right? It is a choice. It is not by force. When you look at places like China, and I talk about, it's so relevant now that Trump is not a socialist, even though MAGA, and I've never seen MAGA like this on X. I thought the Epstein files were bad. They're like, he's a fucking socialist. What the fuck? I'm like, no, that's actually not socialism. He's an authoritarian fascist dictator, but I understand why you think that. Like, socialism is a co-op, right? Like, let me think. Oh my God. I believe it's called the Mondragon Corporation. It's one of the largest corporations in the world. It's based in Spain. It is like a guild of artisans, right? And they have equity in the company. And from the different guilds and groups of people that are producing things to the highest ranking like CEO, I think it's just like 16 to 26x difference in pay. And that gap between the average worker and the CEO, I'd say that would be something to look at in terms of fairness, regulated capitalism, and socialism. Now, in America, it used to be the average gap between the average worker and the CEO was like 255x. I was just reading a report that it's as high as 630 times now. That's capitalism, delusional privatized profit. Sorry, I digress a little bit, but but it's important to understand Trump is doing a Nicolas Maduro, a Xi Jinping. That's why he's like, oh, I love these people. They're so smart. He's doing it. He's threatening and stealing from companies. Aunt Julie, I miss you so much. Love you. Literally in real time, we're watching him do it. And it's not socialism. It's not communism. The minute some psycho is like, hey, I'm here, I'm building concentration camps, anyone that disagrees with me is going to be disappeared, I'm taking over corporations and stealing from them, that is what, in schmotzy terms, in mustache man terms, the Night of the Long Knives was. It was fellow true believers. The SS started out, like, especially the brown shirts, as socialists. right? These were, quote unquote, the Night of the Long Knives was not about let's go after our enemies. It was, we got a problem with the true believers inside our own house, right? The true believers in MAGA, or in the, let's say, conservatives, are the Mitt Romneys. The people that know the difference between actual fiscal conservatism and the opposite of what Trump is doing. People with brains, people that have a problem with Trump violating the Constitution, people that have a problem with Trump violating checks and balances, people that have a problem with Trump becoming 8,000 times worse than Nixon. Those are the true believers. But in the schmatzy party, those were socialists. People thought, oh, like, we're in this together, we're all going to get some equity. Like, that's, and not to go too far back in history, but I am a history major. You know who were socialists? Viking raiders. You would get on a Viking boat and you're like, hey, shit's about to get real bad. We're about to row across some horrible sea or ocean. But when we get there, whatever we get, we're going to split some spoils. You're going to have equity. Maybe not as much as the leader of this or the top people, but everyone in this boat has equity in the spoils. If you're going to fight for your life, you have equity, right? You own your own means of production, essentially. That's socialism. And that's what the brown shirts that worked for Mustache Man thought. They were like, oh, we're socialists. Like, whatever happens now, whatever we do, we're all getting some equity. We're all going to have a little piece of the pie. So in the Night of the Long Knives, Mustache Man got rid of all of them because he's like, nope, this is capitalism and I'm an authoritarian dictator and you are getting nothing. And that is Donald Trump. And MAGA is freaking out, and they're like, oh my God, he's a socialist. No, he, just like Mustache Man wasn't a socialist, he's not a socialist. He's a fascist, authoritarian dictator who's doing an impression of a socialist. But socialism is voluntary. It's about equity. It's about equality, like a co-op, right? You know who was a socialist until he met Trump? Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. He ran a co-op. My Pillow was a co-op. And if you don't know, it's based in Minnesota. And my mom was born in Minnesota. I love Minnesotans. That's why it hurts me what happened in Minnesota this morning. Real salt of the earth, good people in Minnesota. And he was running a co-op, a socialist company where everyone had equity. As high, as much as that company made, they had like a piece of the pie. Winco, I believe, the grocery store, that is a co-op, right? If you want to be part of a socialist company where there's a chance, which the pools of equity are super diluted now as the companies grow, but look for co-ops, look for people that are giving away. Well, you said it's not a real co-op. It's not if you think everyone gets a percentage. No, it's about a pool of equity that gets diluted over time, but it's better than getting nothing, right? And I just want to say something. Co-ops are like universal health care. There's not one type. There are, and I wish I would have taken this class, because there was a class on this in sociology at my university. I never took it. There are many different types of co-ops and structures. You could invent your own, right? I always talk about this, my favorite commie, Richard Wolff, who's the professor of economics emeritus at the University of Amherst, Massachusetts. He's the most brilliant economics professor in the company. And he always talks about the Italian government, I believe, not post-World War II, but post-World War II definitely, but 60s, 70s, and how they were trying to fuel their economy as it was crashing. And they started a government program, and it was because they were the country was going into bankruptcy. They were beyond recession. And so they started telling people, you can come collect your unemployment, or if you get 5 friends together, I'm trying to remember how this went. I'm going to have to look it up and I'll get back to you guys. But it was basically if you want, instead of your unemployment, get 5 people together and you can start a co-op, right? And we will give you the seed money to fund it, to create equity for you all and start a small business. business, which I was like, why don't we do that in America? Like, America is built on generating small business, but then we'd have to get rid of the oligarchy monopolies and crony capitalism we have going on. But yeah, there's all types of co-ops. And like, the one thing I'll say about Americans, I don't care what your political affiliation is. We all want to be successful. We all want to do for ourselves. No one wants to be like, hey, I can't afford to take care of myself. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants that. And if you give people a pathway to a small business, to upward mobility, if I knew I could get 5 friends and create a co-op, I'd be doing that tomorrow. Like, I mean, literally, I would do that tomorrow. I promise you. So and again, it was in lieu of like unemployment universal basic income is another argument of socialism and communism we should go through sometime. Like, I could give you mathematical arguments of how we could all create businesses. That's why I'm so passionate about universal healthcare. How much easier would it be for all of us to create a business if we don't have to pay for healthcare for all of our workers? That is the largest expense there is. There are better ways. Sorry, my iPad went dead because I got so excited. But yeah, I just want to be clear. Trump is doing horrible things. He is stealing from corporations, which, God, corporations are stealing from us. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, Trump just stole 10% of Intel's stock. But that is what Fidel Castro did. That is what Nicolas Maduro does. That is what Putin did. That is what Xi Jinping does. And Trump said this yesterday and the day before in interviews. Yeah, Xi Jinping's been doing it for a while. I should just steal pieces of corporations. And MAGA is like, what the is going on? Like, we have a psycho-socialist leading us. Like, who is this guy? And I can't say enough, and you just need to gently explain to people, that is not socialism. Period. It's not. That's a fascist dictator terrorizing and stealing from people. I don't want anyone's business giving up equity. Like, democracy decides socialism. And it's not in things, like, let me give you an example. Like, in my opinion, and this is the irony, Trump is now saying, and he's not stopping at Intel, he's saying we're going to steal stakes in many companies without American people wanting it, without Congress approving it. We're just going to do it. But he's not taxing corporations, right? Like, that's the weird irony of this. Like, if we want to recirculate, we should tax. And we should have forensic accountants that hold corporations to taxes and hold billionaires to taxes. But Trump doesn't want his corporations taxed. Trump doesn't want his friends' corporations taxed. This is what crony capitalism is. He's like, if I want to just throw my weight around, I'm just going to steal a 10% stake in a company to just say I can. But people who get on their knees and S me off or give me Andrew Jacksons, people who carry water for me, maybe they can keep their 10% stake. What do you mean, how is he doing it? He did it to Intel. He threatened them and said, give me 10% of this company. And they were just like, okay, like, we don't know what else to do. This happened already, which it's kind of weird that people don't know about this. Ooh, YouTube finally knows I'm a person. You're selected. Or maybe I'm so bad at what I'm doing, they're like, you need help. I was selected. Sorry. I get to go to some boot camp to learn how to be an effective creator on YouTube. I think it's actually the opposite of what I said. Let me finish again. Oh, sorry. You can't see what I'm looking at. Sorry. We'll get more into socialism later. I really need to, sorry I went so far off, but I'm very passionate about that. I need to quickly stay on topic with today's pew-pewing, and I'm just going to go through the math. I was hoping Brett was going to make it back, but hopefully he's spending time with his kids. And Brett, if you're here or listening, you are welcome to join anytime, because I would love to know your opinion on these statistics or statistical analysis. They're not statistics necessarily. I'm about to show. Okay, so here, I hope we can make this big enough that everyone can see it. Sorry I'm not updating things. Please tap the screen. All this work I do every day, I rely on your tips and donations. This is my job. So if you would like to support me, this is my Cash App and Venmo or gift. Or most importantly, I'm getting extreme anxiety because of the subscriptions just dropping day after day. If you would like to subscribe, please do. Wait, what is... CDC director departs just weeks into drama. Oh, great. That's even great. Thank you, Heather, for the Venmo reminding me to drink water. I'm very sick, so. Okay, hopefully I can make this big enough so everyone can see it without a problem. So again, this is how my brain works. Like, I show you guys clips, but then I write everything out. Can I make this bigger? Oh, this is going to be a problem here. Anyways, this is my statistical analysis about, again, well, I have two. Let me see. Hold on. Can I make it bigger if I do this? Oh, I know. I have to screenshot it. I forgot. If I screenshot it, I can make it bigger. Hold on. That's what it is, the way you do this. Okay, sorry. I was like, I always forget that. Let me pull up the screenshots. Okay. Oh, that's not in the presentation. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is, we might have to just... Statistical analysis. Mass shootings are caused by access to firearms or mental health. Thank you so much for the gift. I appreciate it. That was what I was looking at, right? That idiot, Rachel Campos Duffy, was implying, who married her, and that's a Hispanic last name, was implying that the cause of these pew-pewings, mass tragedies specifically, I'm not necessarily just talking about pew-pew violence. I'm talking specifically about mass pew-pew violence. And she was implying it's because of either mental health or, SSRIs. So that's what I was researching. So the overwhelming consensus in public health research, and one of the best studies is out of Ohio State. Thanks, red states that have universities doing good medical research, is in public health research is that the primary driver of country's mass shooting rate is access to firearms, particularly high power weapons. So, and I think specifically it's like semi-automatic, because fully automatic, that's crazy. While mental health is a factor in individual cases, it is a poor predictor at the population level. So now we're getting into actual math, not your feelings. And the evidence linking SSRIs, which is, if you're like, that's like, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like for depression, to mass pew-pewings is not supported by data whatsoever. Thank you for resubscribing, Tommy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Morley, for resubscribing. So again, there is no mathematical, right? This is the same thing with immigrant crime. There's no statistical correlation to immigration and crime. I'm sorry that you feel like there is. There just isn't. It is a poor predictor at the population level, and the evidence linking SSRIs to mass pew-pewings is not supported by data and is considered a harmful misconception. So here's a breakdown. This is how my brain works. I love this. Here's a breakdown of evidence, relevant studies, and meta-analyses. So the pew-pew access argument, strong international and domestic correlation, which I'll get into the international correlations after this. The most compelling evidence comes from cross-national comparisons and studies of policy changes, relevant studies and analyses. So I put the actual, remove your background noise so viewers can hear you. Sorry, TikTok Studio is out of control today. Relevant studies and analyses. So I tried to cite sources as well, and I'll put these in the Discord later if anyone's interested. I need to put them in Google Docs though, because I just have them in Apple notes. International correlation. So this is a study published in 2016, study published in the American Journal of Medicine, which that's the gold standard, compared the rate, which that when you hear rate, it's per 100,000 of pew-pew unalivings of all kinds, so homicides, suicides, accidents in 23 high-income countries, finding the U.S. had vastly higher rates of pew-pew unalivings. Crucially, the U.S. did not have higher rates of non-pew-pew homicide or overall crime rates. Do you understand? Are you getting it? And I'm telling you, there are thousands of studies that prove this. It is the access, which I don't think Trump should defund mental health and make it impossible to get prescriptions, but it is the access to them that is the problem. Finding the U.S. had vastly higher rates of pew-pew unalivings. Crucially, I just read that. Sorry. Here's a quote. The overall firearm unaliving rate was strongly and positively correlated with the percentage of households containing any firearm. It has nothing to do with people's mental health inside a house, what prescriptions they're on. It's just, does a firearm exist inside a house? Period. And that's terrifying. And that's actually the equation. So again, source where I got that from was homicide. I can't read these words, so I'm not going to read that because I think I don't want to get in trouble. But when I put this in all the sources are near. And I don't think the link's translated, so I'll make sure the links populate. State level variations. A 2015 study in the Annual Review of Public Health synthesized decades of research, finding states and cities with higher levels of pew-pew ownership had higher rates of firearm homicides. Sorry, I'm going to find my... Even after controlling, so again, this is mathematical when they say controlling. Even after doing a mathematical control, because this is for poverty, urbanization, right? So that would be like the racism or, this is what poor people do. Unemployment, so crime and other factors. Still, it is about who just has what in a house. Studies on specific laws show that repealing permit to purchase, thank you for resubscribing, Barbara Ann, love you, you're the best. Studies on specific laws show that repealing permit to purchase laws was associated, this was a good one, was associated with a 14.4% increase in pew-pew homicide rates. Just by repealing a law, 14.4% increase in homicide rates. That's from the Epidemiology of Firearm Violence in the 21st Century. That's the Australian case study, which this is a very common one. I think I've gone over before and a lot of people know about. Following a mass pew-pewing in Australia in 1996, they went, they're like, that's it. And they enacted super strict gun control laws, including a massive buyback program, like turn in your pew-pews and we'll buy them back. Finding, so research in JAMA, my favorite medical journal, and elsewhere found that the law reform was followed by no further mass pew-pewings. Which, by the way, a mass pew-pewing is defined in medical journals as 5+. And a significant acceleration in the pre-existing decline of firearm homicide and suicide rates. That's from the Association Between Gun Law Reforms and International Pew-Pew Unalivings in Australia. The mental health argument. So now we get into the lies that Fox, every time a kid goes and unalives other kids in a school, we have to hear about, it's mental health, it's SSRIs. While mental illness is often cited, the data does not support it as a primary cause. So poor predictive value. A 2021 study in preventative medicine analyzed the mental health histories of mass pew-pewers, finding, although a significant portion had evidence of mental health symptoms, the vast majority did not. have a psychiatric diagnosis prior sufficient nor a necessary cause of mass pew-pewing. And also, which I'll get into, when you compare the United States to other countries, right, who have similar rates of mental health issues, the same thing is not occurring, right? That's one of the biggest predictors, or the way we know that this is fake, right? There's huge mental health problems in other countries, and this is not happening there. It is whether you it makes you like unhappy, MAGA, and you really feel like it's just crazy people. This is how math works. Those are your feelings and the lies that you're being told by the NRA and by Fox News and other unintelligent people. This is math. So poor oh yeah, I read that. Finding, although a significant portion of mass pew-pewers had evidence of mental health symptoms, which I would argue, if you're in America and you believe you don't have mental health issues, that's terrifying. That you actually, I'm worried the most about you. You're probably looking to narcissistic personality disorder, because you might have it. Like, we all have it, and there's no shame in that. So, although a significant portion had evidence of mental health symptoms, the vast majority did not have a psychiatric diagnosis prior to their attack. The study concluded that mental health illness is not a sufficient nor a necessary cause of mass pew-pewing. Most people with mental illness are never, I'm a good example of that, are never violent and are in fact more likely to be victims of violence, which is a whole other statistical analysis I would like to go into. So, and that comes from mental illness, mass shootings, and the politics of American firearms. That's a study from 2021. Wait, let me see. I need to switch. Hopefully am I going the right way? Where's my I have to read the bottom. I didn't. So, population level analysis. If mental health were the primary driver, countries with similar rates of mental illness, this is what I was trying to talk about, would have similar rates of mass shootings. They do not. The U.S. rates of mental illness on par with other developed nations like Canada, Australia, UK, but has a mass shooting rate. Oh, here, I do have this here, sorry. But has a mass shooting rate that is orders of magnitude higher. There is no argument. If you are making it's mental health and SSRIs, you are just not able to do math correctly. That is not correct. They have the same or higher rates of mental illness in other countries, but where gun control laws are present, none of this is happening. Implication, the differentiating variable is not mental health prevalence, but access to pew-pews. The SSRI argument. So this is specifically when people start saying, oh, you're on certain types of SSRIs for depression, and that's doing it to you, which I just want to say something. I cannot take any sort of antidepressant SSRIs. It's not good for me. It's not good for my mental health. I don't take them. I don't take any of that. I can't. So I do understand that I don't think SSRIs are good for everyone, but let's get into the math. The SSRI argument, a debunked and dangerous myth. The claim that antidepressants, like SSRIs, cause mass pew-pewings is not supported by scientific evidence and is actively harmful as it stigmatizes those seeking treatment. Like, the last thing we should do is tell people, don't go get help. That's how what happened today in Minnesota, why children were pew-pewed while just trying to be at school. That's why it happens. Don't stigmatize mental health, and don't tell people to not take their meds. That's the worst thing you can do. There's no causal link. Oh, I love the words causal link. There's no epidemiological evidence linking SSRI use to mass pew-pewings. This theory is propagated by anecdotal reports, right? And it's important. That's too big a word for MAGA. So I want everything Fox News tells you is an anecdotal report. It's just saying it, and here's the way. I know anecdotal is big. That means one-off, right? Fox News reports a series of one-offs every day to scare the shit out of white people. That is their goal. Words do rock. I love, sorry, someone wrote words rock in the comments. I love words, right? That all day long, Fox News is taking anecdotal reports, one-offs, and saying, be terrified. An immigrant robbed a store. Be terrified. Do you know, that is what anecdotes are. But when we fight crime, or when we should be concerned about crime, we need statistical correlations. And also, not just like to fight crime, but to not waste our tax dollars. That's why I got so upset about the lies about the statistical correlation between immigration and crime. There isn't one. And now, the most funded bureau is ICE, and the second is the Bureau of Prisons. And I always say, follow the money. That is just insider trading, lobbyists. That is just billionaires and their lackeys getting richer. Use opensecrets.org. Look up who received money from Geo Group and Core Civic. Look up who they lobby. I mean, I think 73% is going to conservatives, but like there are some moderate Democrats on the take from them too. This whole, and I know it's hard to understand this, but I've talked about this for a long time. Please follow me if this is your first time listening, by the way, on YouTube, on Twitch, on X, on TikTok. I would appreciate it. But I've done a lot of statistical analysis on this before. This is just a money grab. This is a transfer of wealth. The idea of this mass deportation is a transfer of wealth. When Trump did this whole flag burning executive order, which, by the way, if you can read, which I actually can read, it doesn't say you go to jail for a year, the executive order. That's a complete lie. What it is saying, we can't do anything about someone burning a flag they own. As a matter of fact, that is the correct way, the legal way to dispose of a flag correctly. The only thing we can do is try to charge them with some other crime related to that. That's what that says. Sorry. The opposite is true. Sorry. So again, I'm talking about there's no causal link between being on antidepressants / SSRIs and mass pew-pewings. The opposite is true. The most significant risk of violence related to mental health is untreated illness. Untreated illness. Now, who defunded healthcare? And healthcare that barely provided any mental health in it at all. Trump. Untreated mental health illness, that's who does this. People who have no hope, people who have never had any clarity about why they're behaving like they do, people that don't know there is medication that can help them. Those are the people that have a high rate of committing mass pew-pewings. Hopeless people who have no access to mental health because of barriers, financial barriers, awareness barriers, whatever. Expert consensus. Major psychiatric and public health organizations like the American Psychiatric Organization have repeatedly stated there is no credible evidence linking SSRIs to mass pew-pewings. A 2020 review in Frontiers in Psychiatry concluded that while all medications have side effects, there is no scientific evidence that SSRIs cause violence or pew-pewings. And that's from SSRIs and Violence, which is a review of available evidence. That's a study from 2020. Synthesis, what the statistical analysis shows. When you control the variables statistically, Maggie, that's beyond you, using regression analysis, the evidence points to this conclusion. 1, strong correlation. Access to firearms, particularly semi-automatic weapons with high-capacity magazines, is the single strongest statistical predictor of a nation's rate of public pew-pewings. Now, understand the difference between anecdotal. I'm not saying no one on SSRIs ever had access to a semi-automatic weapon. That's not the point. We're talking about statistical rates. And the only way we can keep people safe is to look at statistical correlations in crime and then take our tax dollars and concentrate them there and pass legislation there to reduce the rate of this. That's the answer. But as long as we are governed by delulus who pretend that that's not the mathematical answer, math doesn't have feelings. Math isn't insecure and needs a pew-pew under their bed to make up for their small d. This is reality. So, and again, I always talk about, and not my feelings, mathematically. Mathematically, MAGA hates women and children. How do I know that? Statistical analysis, impact studies. The legislation brought and passed in Congress by conservatives, voted on by conservatives disproportionately, I don't feel this way, I mathematically know, discriminates against women and children, makes it more likely they will be the victims of violence, they will have less access to the nutrition they need, they will have less access to the food they need. These are not feelings, MAGA men. These are mathematical facts. Sorry. I don't want to burst your little bubbles. When you control... Oh, wait. Hold on. Sorry. I was on the second one. Strong correlation. That's the one I just read. Weak, no correlation. The prevalence of mental illness in a population does not predict its rate of mass pew-pewings. While some pew-pewers have mental illness, it is not a reliable or a primary explanatory factor at the macro level. Micro is small, macro is large. No correlation or spurious relationship. I love words. The rate of SSRI prescription. So this is specifically about how you always hear MAGA saying, if it's the antidepressants being subscribed. The rate of SSRI prescriptions in a population shows no correlation with mass pew-pewing rates. Just like there is no correlation between immigration and crime in this country. This theory is rejected by the scientific and medical community. In essence, the mental health issues are a global phenomenon, right? Mass pew-pewings are uniquely an American problem. The critical difference is the availability and access to firearms. See, this is how my brain works. Did you guys like it? Thank you. Tap the screen. Let's get to 250K as fast as possible. Sorry, my leg fell asleep while I was reading that. I have to adjust. You said, did they release the suspect? He's no longer they're no longer with us. The suspect, if you're talking about what happened in Minnesota at the oh my gosh, what just happened to my monitor? It just went dark. Or partially dark. No, they're no longer with us. They unalived themselves. I have one monitor that is flickering and going on. I have no idea why. Kira, beautiful name. Thank you so much for the $10 on Venmo. TikTok won't let us give away subs, Lush, and I hate it. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. If not, I think on TikTok.com you might be able to, which I always said this when TikTok got shut down. If you're looking to buy more coins and stuff, it's 20% off, I think, if you go to TikTok.com. So I think if you're ever looking to reload coins and things, do it there. And I always forget, but thanks, Dustin, for the $25 on Venmo, because you're awesome. You're awesome too. Love you so much, more than you know. Okay. And oh yeah, you guys can't see what let me find my other quickly. And I just think it's important. And you don't need to be like, I need to do all this math and gather the information. Most basic large language models, meaning AI, like AI apps, can do these types of statistical analysis. You just need to be specific, like cite studies and sources, like just set the parameters that you want for statistical analyses, what you want compared. And the more you practice getting them to learn this information and do it the way you want, like the more streamlined it will be. Like I said, I pay so I can take huge data sets from the government and like spit it into a large language model, which really they should pay me because I'm like training their model. But yeah, like basic ones can do this stuff too. Must do math. Well, I just think the reason I say this is because we are all going to go crazy trying to reason with MAGA. We just need to be like, you can't, here's math, which impact studies, statistical analysis. It's the same argument with racism. I'm not pointing at, Billy, the geriatric, guy in Georgia who used to be in the KKK and calling him racist. I'm saying statistical analysis, math tells me that black and brown people, that the LGBTQIA are mathematically, systemically being discriminated against. It's not my opinion. It's not my feeling. And when white men, because, this is